Let me ask you something. How many years was Reggie Bush considered the best running back in the league? Was he ever top 3? Was he ever even top 5 in the NFL in his prime? What about Brandon Jacobs? 6'4", 250-pound running back. Had a little speed for his size and would give you a hell of a block. What I don't understand is how you can be graded one thing and either average or below average at everything else, and you're considered either the best or top tier. Now, because the consensus is that Lamar Jackson is a tier 1 quarterback, he is top 3, top 5 in the league, let me start with a positive for those that you believe that narrative. Lamar Jackson is a great leader. Lamar Jackson has a lot of potential and could one day become the best quarterback the NFL has ever seen. The one attribute I appreciate most in Lamar Jackson is his determination. He is not someone to be coached into wanting to become better or be someone who needs to be pushed into becoming better. He sincerely wants it himself. So he is forever working out. He is forever training. He is forever watching film to be the leader or the quarterback of the future. But for those of you that are confused, likability does not make you a tier 1 quarterback. There are tangibles and intangibles both that go into categorizing someone as a tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 quarterback. Understand, Lamar Jackson lacks a lot to be qualified as a tier 1 quarterback, and here's why. The players that I named starting the video, Reggie Bush, Brandon Jacobs, they were great at some things. Brandon Jacobs, relentless to go down before he hit 5 yards. If you had enough bodies on the man to stop him before he got to 5 yards, he was going to fall for another 2. Reggie Bush. I remember a point in time Reggie Bush in his career averaged 27.3 yards per catch. Did we ever consider him the best running back in the league? Did we ever consider him a top 3 or 5 best running backs in the league? I don't recall. I don't think that ever happened for either one of them. But essentially, that's what we're doing for Lamar Jackson. Because you're great at one thing that's not primary, it's not the most essential to your position, all of a sudden you're now tier 1, if not the best. Let me ask y'all something. When is the last time a player came into a system? We can do this cross sports, basketball, baseball, football. When is the last time a player came into a system and the system was switched to accommodate them because they were so great at everything? Typically doesn't happen like that. LeBron James is one. Mike Vick might be a close, but he wasn't great at everything. He was just an above average passer by the time he got to the Philadelphia Eagles. But somebody coming into a league, they don't typically switch everything up to accommodate you because you're so great at everything. They typically do that to hinder you from having to use your weaknesses, and they exploit what you're great at. Now, statistically, I understand that he surpassed Mike Vick, Randall Cunningham, Donovan McNabb, Culpepper, and all those that came, Steve Young, that came before him that were known as dual quarterbacks, if not primarily scrambling quarterbacks, with his performance on the ground this year. But I ask you, if he was that great of a passer, why wouldn't they have utilized that going into the playoffs 2 consecutive years now? His regular season numbers are outlandish. And I mean, don't get me wrong, his passing yards per game, his number of attempts per game, his number of completions per game, but he has a high QBR. He typically has a high passer rating. One thing that we forget is that stats can be misleading, very misleading. How is it that Lamar Jackson led the league in touchdowns, but somehow out of quarterbacks to play 13 games or more, he was dead last as far as attempts and completions? Yet he threw 66%. I applaud Greg Roman. You were able to put together a system that made Lamar Jackson look even better than what he already naturally is. He threw 36 touchdowns, the touchdown leader. So a lot of y'all were hoorah and, oh, he can't be trash as a thrower because he's the touchdown leader. I want y'all to sincerely go back and watch some of that footage and tell me how many touchdowns that he threw where he was actually threading the needle. Out of 36, I counted 9 guaranteed, 2 debatable. So I'm giving him 11, which those are still good. And when I say guaranteed, I mean 9 guaranteed where he had to complete a great pass, 2 debatable, and I'm straddling the fence. Okay, so I don't want to hear, oh my God, Lamar Jackson, he's such a great passer because he threw 36 touchdowns. A lot of them, they were wide open. And if we're being sincere, a lot of them, the tight end and or receiver was wide open and they still had to jump for the ball. Now make that make sense if you're such an accurate quarterback. 66% is staggering to me. I would have never guessed that it would have been that high watching him this season as far as his completion percentage. But somehow or another, he managed to pull it off. But again, I pat Greg Roman on the back for his situation because those were a lot of wide open passes. Teams were so scared of Lamar Jackson and Mark Ingram coming out of the backfield that they zeroed out. They played man coverage, and believe it or not, Willie Snead, Mark Andrews, Nick Boyle, I'm sorry, and Hollywood Brown, don't know his real name. I hope that's not his real name. They're not that bad. Something that I've been hearing a lot is, oh, well, if Lamar Jackson had the weapons of a Patrick Mahomes or a Dak Prescott or even Deshaun Watson with DeAndre Hopkins, Nuke Hopkins, he would be so much better, and he would be able to throw a better completion percentage. He would be able to throw more touchdowns, and he wouldn't look so bad in the playoffs. That's not true. That is a double-edged sword. I want y'all to understand that. So yes, with Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Damian Williams coming out of the backfield, receiving, I'm not talking about rushing, for Patrick Mahomes, and even Sammy Watkins, yes, they do make his job easier, but that's a two-way street, double-edged sword. I could easily make the argument that Nick Boyle, Mark Andrews, Willie Snead, and Hollywood Brown, again, I hope that's not your real name, would look a lot better with another quarterback. But again, it's the system that created these players. I watched a lot of those guys create avenues for Lamar Jackson. You throw a 10, 15-yard pass and somebody takes it to the house. Or you throw a 7, 8-yard pass. You need 12 yards to get to the end zone. They fight or they dink and dunk until they get to the end, carry a defender into the end zone. With that said, let's stop acting as if Russell Wilson has had the best of the best on his team every year. The best receiver that he's arguably had so far could easily be DK Metcalf. He's played one season. Doug Baldwin had what, maybe one 1,000-yard season. Tyler Lockett, forgettable easily. Percy Harvin at one point in time, but he didn't play, if I'm not mistaken, until like the last 4 games of the Super Bowl year. Then he went into the playoffs and he looked better as a return man than he did a receiver. Now I get it. He's had a run blocking line. He had Marshawn Lynch when he went to the first Super Bowl. He had Marshawn Lynch when he went to the second Super Bowl. Obviously, we're blaming Pete Carroll, but Russell Wilson gets some of the blame for that debacle of a Super Bowl that should have been an easy win. At the same time, let's not act like it's mandatory that you have notable names and weapons as a young QB to make it in the NFL. I will never argue that it helps. Won't argue that. But at the same time, let's respect the receivers or the weapons that he has to accommodate his game by saying, well, they could look better as if they had a passing QB as well. If I were to take Willie Snead and put him into the Patriot system when Tom Brady was there, don't you think he would look better than N'Keal Harry did this past season? Don't you think he would be a fair compliment to Julian Edelman? Even better, let me take Hollywood Brown, who could take the top off of a defense, and Mark Andrews. I'm going to put Mark Andrews as my starting tight end. Now, instead of 37, 38-year-old Benjamin Watson, he has a Pro Bowl tight end in Mark Andrews, and I'm going to take Hollywood Brown, who, again, can take the top off of said defense. And you're not going to tell me that they wouldn't look worlds better with Tom Brady than they would Lamar Jackson. And that's no slight to Lamar Jackson because I feel like the talent is even across the table. Lamar Jackson, nowhere near the best passer. His receivers, nowhere near the best receivers. His tight ends, I would put Mark Andrews easily top 10 tight ends in the league. Overall, not just receiving, being able to block, all that good stuff. But my point is, let's stop blaming the inability of the receivers, and let's shed some light on the fact that too, it could be Lamar Jackson's inabilities themselves. Now, if I've offended somebody by throwing out the accusation that maybe he's to blame for his receivers' inabilities and not the other way around, let me give you something. How is it that he can look so great during the regular season and then look so subpar during the playoffs. Oh, I forgot, the competition levels up. So the few teams that are as good as the Baltimore Ravens collectively during the regular season, they've won some and they've lost some. But in the playoffs, when the competition levels up, it's a completely different story. And we're not talking like he lost to the Patriots or the Kansas City Chiefs or what the Pittsburgh Steelers used to be in yesteryear. We're talking about the Chargers and the Titans. Now, I don't want to make it seem like the Titans had no business being in the AFC Championship because their head coach, defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator were able to put together some great game plans against the teams that they played against, not only in the regular season, but in the playoffs as well. Even against Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and the Kansas City Chiefs. But I want y'all to understand something. We never gave Andy Dalton credit for being one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Now, I'm not going to go so far and say is he ever deserved to be tier one. I never believed that. But 5 years in, Andy Dalton had a winning record in the regular season, 4 of which he went to the playoffs. Winning record in the regular season. Now, I'm not comparing winning records because obviously in the regular season so far, Lamar Jackson's is shitting on Andy Dalton's regular season record. But if we're talking double-digit wins for 4 out of 5 seasons for Andy Dalton, then got to the playoffs and did what? In 4 games, 1 touchdown, 6 interceptions. It's not too good. 55, 56% completion. It's not too good. Oh, okay. Well, let's go to Lamar Jackson. 3 interceptions to 3 touchdowns. It's not god awful. You want that to be skewed at least 50%. 6 to 3. 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Okay, well, let's go to his completion percent. 51% completion for the playoffs. So again, when I get on Lamar Jackson's case about, oh, well, he's not that great of a passer, and y'all tell me that I'm reaching because I say that the touchdowns that he was throwing was wide open, pat on the back. Once again, he's the touchdown leader. I can't take that away from him, nor would I even try to. And he did definitely deserve, he earned and deserved the MVP trophy of this season. But you have to be able to pass the ball at some point in time. What's the difference between Tim Tebow and Lamar Jackson? Greg Roman. If we're being honest, Tim Tebow at least won a playoff game. Then Peyton Manning came and got the team, and he won 2 more games than Tim Tebow did the previous year. But again, Lamar Jackson isn't, as far as throwing ability, that far off from a lot of quarterbacks that we never considered top tier. We never even gave them a second or third chance. Oh, but because he's able to put his feet on the ground, make people miss, and turn a 15-yard loss into a 70-yard touchdown, oh, he's an exception. Well, again, I don't have a problem with the exception to the rule. I have a problem when y'all say he's a tier 1 quarterback, if not the number 1, number 2 quarterback in the NFL, and he has no passing stats other than leading touchdowns. Again, I applaud him to show for it. I'm sorry. Y'all have to make that make sense. He is one hell of a matter of fact, that's just it. He is a tier 1 athlete. I would even go so far as to say there is Lamar, as far as athleticism, there is Lamar Jackson, and right now there is the rest of the league. I would do that. That's fair. But let's stop calling him a tier 1 quarterback. Eventually, you have to put the ball in the air. Eventually. Everybody praised Mike Vick. Oh my God, he beat Green Bay in Lambeau. It hadn't been done in so many years and all this other stuff. And then what happened? Never made it back. I understand the dogfighting situation took away from his career. He could have developed all that good stuff, but he got a second chance with Philly. Jeremy Maclin, Deshaun Jackson, LaShawn McCoy was there. I don't remember too many receivers outside of the Jordan Matthews. I mean, he was drafted high, but we're not bragging about him. Cam Newton. Oh, yeah, Cam Newton was a leading offense at one point in time as far as points scored. And the only thing he had was Greg Olsen, who was in and out that season, and then Ted Ginn Jr. Kelvin Benjamin got injured. If I'm not mistaken, it was preseason, but if not, it was midway through game 1. And he had Ted Ginn Jr. to have put up 30 points more a game. Got to the Super Bowl, and what did he do? He couldn't pass. Let me rephrase. He wasn't a great passer. He was an average passer. So what do y'all expect? Okay, Lamar Jackson comes in next season. He's gonna have another great season, and I can already hear it now. Oh, Stiggs, you was wrong. We told you. Give him credit. He's putting the ball in the air now. He's probably gonna put up another 30 touchdowns. I would say that people aren't so fearful of him running, and they understand that now if they want a chance to win the game, they're gonna have to kind of let him run because they can't get beat with wide open touchdown passes. They can't get beat with one-on-ones because if my safety misses the tackle, or if the receiver gets behind the safety, in some cases the tight end, how you're a professional safety and you let a tight end get behind you then outrun you, I don't know, but they're gonna have to stop giving it up. So when Lamar Jackson plays great again next season because of his ability to run and he gets to the playoffs, and for the third year consecutive I'm correct about what I've been saying, once the competition levels up, once you get the game plan for a difficult team, it's a completely different situation. If he screws the pooch one more time in the playoffs, what are y'all gonna say? Can't come to his defense anymore. Oh, he was voted number one, top 100. He deserved it. He was the MVP, was he not? Okay, being number one doesn't mean you're the best quarterback. It just means that you were the deadliest player in the NFL. It could mean that you were the best athlete in the NFL, so on and so forth. But let's stop acting like he's a tier one quarterback. He's not. Your primary job is to pass the ball. At best, he's average at that. Again, 13 games. Quarterbacks that started 13 games, he was dead last as far as completions and attempts. That doesn't speak to a quarterback that was going to be known for passing the ball. I'm sorry, it does not. Until he gets there, I'm going to have to continue to ask, make it make sense. Are you drunk